Secret friends, unite!
Hey friends, welcome back to Oops! All Thunderdome segment on the Secret Friends Unite on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode 574. This is our show, of course, where we tackle a single topic of something that's cool and fun that's going on, sometimes something retro, but in this case, it's something that's very much up front because it's a show that's just been on the air for 2 weeks. We're only 2 weeks behind. Feels good. But I'm joined, as I so rarely am, unfortunately, by my partner, Mr. Secret Friends number 2, Peter. Peter, good evening. How are you?
Hello.
Well, we are going to dig in and talk about the first spinoff of an absolutely exceptional program. Some people, like my friend Ryan Airy of Screencrest, say is the best show on television right now. But that's not the show we're talking about. I'm referring to For All Mankind, which actually, Peter, we just started watching that again yesterday because we're like,
it's a great show.
We watched this episode of the spinoff, and then we decided to go back and even we're on episode 3. I was watching episode 3 before I came down here, and leaps and bounds. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into talking about Star City, the first episode, kind of our reactions here in a moment. But first and foremost, and this is particularly big because by the before this is when we're recording this, but by the time this hits the airwaves, April and I will have already attended Star Trek Long Island and Hepog, New York, which we're very excited about. But while we're there, we're going to talk to a lot of people about our Secret Friends Unite Patreon. We're really psyched about that. Over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite, you can even just sign up for free. And even if you don't want to pay the extra, my goodness, $2 a month to get all of our great bonus content, it's a great way to just keep track of what we're putting out. Even if you then say, oh, there's a new episode of the Star Trek show, there's a new episode of the interview show, and then pop over and listen to it for free. But there are bonus programs that if you're on Patreon that you'll find nowhere else, like the great breakdown that Peter and I are doing on the Facts Geek Life about Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, which we're just starting to wind down now, or the ongoing Great Bad Movies podcast I do with my wife, April, the Bad Trip to the Movies with the Cardins. We just did a great one about the first Fast and Furious movie, which was great. And we've got some other great stuff coming up. So we would love to have you on board. Your first week is absolutely free with content. It's then 50% off if you stay on board for that first month, and you stay on board for as little as $2 a month. It's a lot of great entertainment for just $2 a month. Moreover, you get to support our efforts. That money goes right back into to the costs associated with making our show. So we'd be very grateful if you go over to patreon.com/secretfriendsunite and just try us out, see of the hundreds of hours of content that are there, if there's something that comes to your liking. All right. Commercial paying segment over. Let's talk about Star City. Now, this is, as I mentioned, this is a spinoff produced by created by Ben Nadivi, Matt Wolpert, and our hero, Ronald D. Moore, who gave us, obviously, not only For All Mankind, for which this is spun off, but he was a driving creative force behind Star Trek The Next Generation from season 3 on, for the majority of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and then, of course, Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, the second time I'm bringing it up. So he is kind of a creative genius that if Peter and I get our way one day, we will have him on our Spotlight segment because we would love to meet him and talk to him about all the great stuff going through his brain. But this is really taking the For All Mankind series, which starts in 1969 with a forking timeline, as people who are fond of the MCU will be familiar with, where the Russians first land on the moon. Beating the U.S. And that's really where this spins off of. So this is a focus on the Soviet Union. The Star City is the name of the space center over in the USSR, the Soviet Union, where this is taking place. And this came out at the end of May. So I've got a summary of the first episode. I'm going to read it. So, as it was in the show notes, if you've not watched this show and you want to, please pop on over to Apple Plus or Apple TV Plus. They keep changing the name. If you're not currently a subscriber, think about subscribing. I would love to hear from somebody who watches this show but hasn't watched the other one. Like if somebody is hearing what I'm saying and like, all right, I'll go check that out just by hearing what I'm talking about. Go sign up for 7 days or whatever it is. I know the Apple people don't love to give it away, but there's got to be some free trial of some kind, or borrow somebody's ID. You didn't hear me say that. And watch this episode and then come back, right at this time mark and listen to our breakdown. But episode 1 is called The Eyes, directed by Nick Murphy, teleplay by the 2 creators, Ben and Matt, and the story is by all 3 creators, so that brings in, again, our hero, Ronald D. Moore. In June of 1969, Svetlana Leonova is wakened in the middle of the night and learns that her husband, Alexei, has become the first person to walk on the moon. The chief designer, played by a very reptilian individual, Reese Evans, who I'll talk about in a moment, is bestowed the Hero of the Soviet Union in a secret ceremony, but no one can know of the honor for fears that the Americans may target him. Oh, the evil Americans, which is more true now than it ever was. But I digress. Colonel, boy, I'm really going to struggle with some of these names. Colonel Ludmila
Raskova.
Thank you very much. KGB's head of surveillance in Star City, very sturdy woman, as I like to say when you get somebody. It's a very severe expression. Tells the chief designer that Americans have acquired his lunar base plans, which is obviously phase 2. Raskova's team has concluded that the culprit is Yana
Akhmatova.
Thank you very much. Slated to be the first woman on the moon, but the new opera, Irina Moroskova, finds evidence to the contrary after Yana has been taken and, beaten severely, things of that nature. Regular KGB stuff.
Yeah.
Raskova takes Moroza to Yana and hands Moroza a gun, which Moroza then turns around and hands back. Raskova shoots Yana in the head, since KGB never admits mistakes. It sounds like my ex-wife.
KGB never arrests innocent. Yeah.
Charlie ex-wife never admit mistake. The Soviet Union insists that the launch go as planned, and Yana's replacement, Anastasia Bikalova, who we watch. Bilikova, thank you. I should be letting you read this shit. We'll only have 3 days to prepare for the mission. After a suit malfunction and a harrowing spacewalk, Bilikova becomes the first woman to walk on the moon, but she strays from her scripted remarks before having her audio feed cut off, which I think is going to be a problem in episode 2, which I've not yet watched.
I mean, spoilers for All Mankind. We never hear from her again. So.
Oh boy, yes, Poochie was killed on the way back to his own planet.
Quite possibly that.
Oh my gosh! All right, so we're going to break this down the way we typically do when we're talking about a single television episode or a season wrap up. We're going to do some favorite moments. We're going to do some moments that we could have done without / missed opportunities. Our wish list for season 1, which I kind of wrapped into my season 1 or my episode 1 score. So, Peter, let's start with you. Let's talk about some of your favorite moments.
Some of my favorite moments. I did like a lot. I mean, we've talked about For All Mankind before a little bit, and some of my favorite stuff is just seeing like it's not retro at the time, but it's retro for us. The retro tech work, retro tech space technology. So seeing all of that, like them working with, Soyuz and the lander that, like, in reality we never saw, but seeing the Soviet lander, especially on the inside, which I've never ever seen before. So that was kind of cool. There was a scene that I thought was hysterical because I had read about it in, it's an actual tradition, but I first read about it in Project Hail Mary, actually. When they were talking about the Russians launching things, where Gagarin took a leak on a tire of the bus. And so there's this whole thing where like, oh, well, what's your face? Akhmatova was just going to throw something at it. And then Belikova just decides to pee on the tire as well. And it's kind of funny in the sense that it's like, this is a thing that I didn't think that they were actually going to stick in there.
Yeah.
But they did. And I thought that was kind of fun. I know that's weird, but it's just like these little, like, these little tradition things that are part of the space program that are just random.
Yeah.
But so it means that they did their research, which I really, really appreciate.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. The, all all of the surveillance stuff was very on point.
Yeah,
I liked
yeah,
that
you
a lot.
right.
I had suspicions and I had to go look it up to make sure I was thinking of the right person, but Irina Morozova is the woman who later becomes head of Roscosmos when Margot's involved.
Oh, so that's the woman who we really even just saw. Oh my God!
Yep. So that's why
I didn't really connect those dots.
Yeah, when they're talking about her being former KGB, this is the beginning of her career. So it'll be interesting to see her slide into terribleness.
Yeah. I think we saw a quick slide.
Well, she didn't pull the trigger, but what we're seeing is the beginning of that, because when she does it, she's like, well, there was an error and I want to correct the error. So it's kind of a very honest sort of like cross the T, dot the I sort of thing. And then she finds out like, well, if you do that, the outcome may not be what you think.
Right. This is not going to go the way you think.
Yeah.
Oh.
So those are kind of some of my favorite things. I did like the spacewalk.
Oh, yeah. That's what I absolutely said. That I mean, as far as so many shows are built around like a big set piece. I know I talk about that a lot, particularly with the Star Wars stuff, like we talked about on our Star Wars show. But yeah, I love that. It was very, very harrowing. I liked I had a lot of excitement from the cold open all the way through kind of the credits, which I thought were super cool. They were kind of Game of Thrones-esque. But Star City, as they built it, very much looks like Cape Baratan, which is the Romulan capital from Star Trek.
Yeah, they did kind of use that.
Yeah, I had to dig for a while. You know that name is not actually canon. I had to find it.
It's just
it's just Romulan capital, which reminds me of Kang and Kodos from The Simpsons. We're newlyweds on our way to Earth capital.
Yeah.
I love the and it was in the speech, of course, with the guy we see in the cold open, and then obviously with our cosmonaut at the end. I do this for the Marxist-Leninist way of life, and then they come back and they're having this big propaganda parade, and we're celebrating the Russian victory over the Americans. It's just so like Cold War-ish, which of course
it's very Cold War. I really like the mix of like original footage from that time with new footage and the rather seamless way that they did it, which they did really, really well in For All Mankind. But this is also, to me, this is almost more impressive because a lot of that shit doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Again, I was joking about Rhys Ifans, he was the lizard in the Andy Garfield Spider-Man, the first movie, which he was great. But
I was trying to place him the whole time and just they're looking him up.
And I have some thoughts around why the fact that all of the accents kind of tend to sync up. But I noticed that I did really like Rhys Ifans getting his award and then he delivered a speech to a room with one other dude in it, and it really reminded me. And I know I talk all the time about how much I love Larry Hama's classic G.I. Joe comic, but there was an issue where one of the Joes had been injured in combat and he was laying in a bed recovering, and for that, I think it was Gung Ho, who was the Marine, got the Purple Heart, and then one of the other Joes says, they even show you a nice picture of it because they have to take it and put it involved in the Pentagon until everything we do is declassified, so you'll probably never see it again. So that made me chuckle. But that was kind of the sum total of stuff that I enjoyed.
I did think it was kind of fun to see Sergei again, even though he's obviously not played by the same actor.
Right. You see, I'm missing the connections because it's just, even though April and I had the same comment, like, even though I feel like we watched this whole show less than a year ago, we watched so much stuff, it just kind of comes in and goes out the other side. So I
binged the entire show before the most recent season started, so I've
got there you go. So everything
in the back of my head.
So. Very, very, very fresh. All right. Some things we didn't dig. I'll start. I didn't love, although I see that there's some necessity to it, the way that every character was British and had a British accent.
Yeah, I didn't really care for that.
I know
it's weird, but I didn't.
I completely acknowledge that this show would lose a lot of punch if everything was subtitled. Doesn't mean that it couldn't have been. Because again, I think, and I'm not knocking on Ron Moore and his compatriots who completed the show, because I think they're producing something, particularly with For All Mankind, that is head and shoulders above almost anything else that's on television right now. But we just don't really live in a viewership society where people want to sit and have to read a show. There are some people who are dead set against it. I turn the subtitles on with a lot of stuff, but I also spend a lot of time looking at my phone because, let's face it, we live in a time where the ADD of people like me is the norm, and we all have phones in our hands, so we're all like dee dee dee, and you need to be able to kind of tune in. It's the whole reason why Netflix is like, well, people have to restate the plot of the movie 4 or 5 times in a made for Netflix thing because nobody's paying attention. So I get why it wouldn't really work, but I think those British accents just really stood out like a sore thumb. It really kind of pulled you out of it.
Yeah, as like a counterpoint to like what could have been done is HBO's Chernobyl.
Okay, yeah, which I haven't seen. So yeah,
because that was actually done. They spoke in like Russian accents, if I'm remembering correctly. So yes, they wouldn't be speaking in that accent because they're not speaking English, but it helps the English viewer.
You're right.
Acclimate in their head that I am in Russia. I'm not somewhere else. Now, it'll be interesting when we get to scenes, which we probably won't in this season, but if we get to scenes where they're talking to someone who speaks English, will we have a shift and then our Russian characters speak with that accent? I don't know. That would be interesting.
Right.
That would be something that would be a good choice if that's what we were going to do.
Right.
But I don't know that they're going to do that. I for one, am not super opposed to having subtitles all the time if it was all in Russian.
Right.
But because I watch anime subtitled. But that's not a huge amount of like your average television.
Right. Yeah, it would probably be more of a detriment. Now, this series was shot in Lithuania, so that's obviously over in the European sphere. So a British cast, I guess, makes a bit more sense.
It's close to Russia.
But even based on that, why isn't everybody? Everybody can, your skilled actor can do different accents. That's a very core part of it. So why aren't they doing, like you said, a Russian accent? So them doing a British accent.
I mean, it could be that they wanted to cast who they could cast, and they didn't want to fight with the various because a Russian accent is hard to do correctly for, especially an American.
Right.
Americans have a difficult time doing a lot of different accents, apparently.
Right.
But
and British people have a terrible time speaking American, which I have said many, many times.
It depends on the actor, but as a general rule, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, our accent is harder to master.
Our regional accents are much harder to master.
Our regional diction. Yeah, we really do. I mean, we really do.
There are regional accents in the U.S. A lot of people don't think so, but they do.
Oh,
exist.
God, yeah. Well, I mean, the southern drawl versus the.
Well, not even that.
Are we talking Michigan?
Not even that. Like Michigan versus Minnesota versus versus Indiana. There's differences.
Oh, Indiana is definitely a big one. I get because my coworkers are all from down there, so I know when I'm talking to my boss, he'll say roof instead of roof, and then it'll throw me off. So be like, can you repeat that, please?
They're not always huge, but it's similar to like how in England you have like a bazillion different accents surrounding London because of how it worked. It's not quite as concentrated, but it's similar.
Right. So I kind of struggle with the fact that everything is gray and awful and everybody is miserable except for the one couple that's having sex that gets surveilled. But it's like April and I went back and forth, and April was going to join us tonight. As I said, she's out sick today. But we really talked. It's just it was hard to find something or somebody to feel good about or to root for. Like you wanted somebody to be successful, and you're like nobody. It's just like. It was hard to find anybody that you could really be like, you're gonna do it, kid.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually found that was one of the things that I actually thought was a good point.
Okay.
Oddly.
Okay.
Because it's very accurate to the time period.
Yeah.
Like if you go look at Soviet architecture, anything from that time period, it was all gray and concrete and gross.
Right.
Everyone was sad. And if you talk to anyone who was living in the Soviet Union at the time, it was all terrible. So,
and I'm sure that's accurate. It's just it's tough.
Oh yeah, no, visually it makes it hard.
Yeah,
but
to translate to an audience where it's like watching the first episode of For All Mankind. It's like, well, you can feel their struggles, but they're singing they're singing what becomes of the brokenhearted in a bar, and everybody is celebrating / commiserating at the same time.
It's the massive difference between American and Russian culture, especially at that time.
Yeah,
which I think they nail. So it makes it tough, but I think they nailed it. Really, like the paranoia for all of the surveillance, because you have people freaking out about that. Like there's a moment where like the great designer is in the hospital and like I think it's his wife asks him a question, and there's this very significant look between the two, but he doesn't say anything.
Yeah, right.
Because he knows they're being surveilled.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's a very, very well done depiction of the Soviet Union in the late 60s.
Right.
Where it did suck. Like it really sucked to live there.
Right.
But I do agree, like one of the things that I thought that was kind of a little bit of a miss for me, and they did a little bit of it, was the problem solving. Because a lot of, especially in the first season of For All Mankind, where they're trying to like, well, how do we get this to work? Well, how do we get, like, we need to get someone in the moon and we need to get them to it now. How do we do all the calculations? And Margot's doing the math to make sure that Neil doesn't, pancake on the surface. And like all of that tension, we didn't, because the first, I think it was the first episode of For All Mankind where we got Neil on the moon. Like we did end with that with Tranquility Base. But there was all of that tension of just like, oh shit, everything could go wrong. And we're running the numbers and we're running the communications. We're trying to figure this all out. We didn't have that sort of sense of like, oh shit, everything's going wrong. We had kind of the things aren't going as well as they should. Like, and then we bring in the paranoia stuff, like, what's her face? Akhmatova getting accused and then blasted. Belikova not knowing, like she kind of knows, but she's really nervous, and she does. And the pilot, whose name is escaping me, doesn't want her to touch anything.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, just don't touch anything. Just shut up.
You just rehearse your lines. Shut up and don't do anything. And so like, there was a
personal connection because he was close with Yama. That was what I wrote. I wrote wrongly accused of cosmonaut getting shot in the face was not on my episode 1 bingo card of any show, but I didn't see it coming. But I probably should have
expect it exactly. But it was one of those. Once they pulled it out, it was like, oh yeah, that's on point for KGB.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. I think it would have been also interesting to spend a little bit more time on the space flight itself.
Yeah.
Because now, granted, For All Mankind didn't as much for this particular one as well, because they wanted us to sit in mission control and not know what the hell was going on. So they kind of did the same thing here. But because the lander was so different, I would have liked to see how they controlled it. Because I'm that kind of nerd.
Yeah.
How do the controls work on this one? And then also, and how does it land? Because it's a different shape and doesn't. Anyway, so all that. But then also because she's actually landing this by herself. Like the pilot isn't with her. He's up in the service module, still orbiting the moon. Because there's only 2 astronauts instead of the 3 in the Apollo missions.
Right.
So that was one of those things. Like it probably just slips most of our minds as viewers, because we're used to 3 astronauts head to the moon, and like currently when we sent Artemis up, it was 4. So we're like, 3 or more going to the moon. No, this was 2 because that's how many people were in Soyuz.
1 for 1 and 1 for exactly. It's that. Yeah, that was the whole roster. So we already kind of touched on seeing our heroine going improv and going off script, and then she gets the hook to cut off the audio. And I said, I feel like when we come back to episode 2, and episode 2 is out now, and actually episode 3 is out now, because by the time this comes out, this is a Friday show again over on Apple Plus, or Apple TV Plus. I should get that right. Whatever the hell it is, that's where it's at. So, I didn't have a lot of like episode 1 wish list stuff, because I kind of rolled everything into my notes about the my score for the episode. But do you have any big wishes for the season?
Some of my wish list is a lot of seeing what some of these characters are going to do to become the characters that we know.
Okay.
So I want to see that slow descent, or maybe not so slow, descent into just authoritarian terribleness that Irina...
surrendering your principles.
Surrendering her very being to the KGB. I would be very curious to see how they do. They started it in this episode, but I'll be very curious to see how she develops into the absolutely ruthless monster that she is later on.
Like I said, I didn't make the connection, but no, now that you've said it. But yeah, for me, this was a lot of some things I enjoyed. It was kind of largely a miss for me. It was like a 6 out of 10. It doesn't mean it won't get better. And I think even having this conversation, you've elucidated that there was a character we knew that I didn't even really connect with. And again, having watched it, God, maybe it was 2 years ago that we watched the show. Because man, we just raced. We just could not turn it off, and we're doing it again because this inspired us to watch it again. And I'm such a devotee of everything that Ron does that it's not hard. But I can't help doing the compare contrast back to the parent series, which in a lot of ways you really shouldn't. But in most shows, and this is what April and I were talking about, you have to find a segment of it that you can root for. You can root for a character, you can root for a group or a plot line that you want to see succeed through adversity. But with everything in this, it's like nobody is set up to succeed. Everybody is set up to serve the Marxist-Leninist way of life, and it's just so dark.
Yep.
And it's just, can it change? It can probably change pretty quickly. But again, we also know that the Soviet Union does not end in 1991 in this timeline. It goes on. But there are geopolitical changes that happen in this alternate Earth with, the forming of the M7, which becomes the M6 as time goes by, of nations that come together in a coalition for space exploration. Like, there's great things ahead for this planet Earth. But we know that there's political intrigue coming up, and I know there's one of the big set pieces in one of the middle seasons of For All Mankind was a bombing at the Johnson Space Center, and kind of what's involved with that, and one of our main characters on the other side, defecting, and Margot, who it's so funny watching the show again because everybody is so young. Looking at Ed Baldwin in the first episode, he looks like he's 22, and then his character passed away in season 5.
Which they did a flashback. Yeah. They made him look not quite that young, but pretty damn close. And
they brought back his wife and his son who had passed as well. I mean, sorry for all the spoilers, but when you compare contrast old age makeup, because it used to really be makeup back in the days of TNG in the 90s and whatever it is. Now everything is de-aging, and it's making Michael Douglas look young in the first opening act of Ant-Man in 2015. You know what I mean? So making him look like it was 1989. So but anyway, yes, here's me on a tangent. I gave some points for some of the really thrilling set pieces, the spacewalk and all this different stuff. But yeah, I'm hopeful for change. I'm not sure that we'll necessarily get back to the series to wrap it up, but we might. One of the with this show, since we changed the format back last year, one of the great advantages is that we can tackle a lot of stuff a little bit more in depth by just doing 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But the disadvantage is that we only do it once a week, so there's a lot of stuff we can't get back to. So
yeah.
So we'll try. Peter and I have kicked around, maybe we should do the show twice a week, but we already make 4 shows, and it's not always so easy to get it all in. So we'll do the best we can. But definitely want to hear. I would love to hear from people listening to the sound of my voice. Do you want to hear us talk about the show more? Do you want us to come back after episode 10 and give us our final thoughts? We would love to hear from you, and we'll give some of those links at the end of the show. Peter, where do you land for your episode 1 ranking?
I'm actually going to give this one an 8.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So could it use some improvement? Absolutely. Everything can. But I think that for doing what it's doing and capturing the the feeling of the Russian space program, I think they nailed it. And so I like it really got the feel of what the Soviet Union was at the time. A lot of the intrigue, a lot of the paranoia, KGB, and all of that. So I think they did a really, really good job. But the set pieces and stuff that you mentioned, are all really good. The thing that kind of knocks it down for me a little bit is Some of it's the accents because it just irritated me.
Right.
I know it's a thing that is like, yeah, whatever, but it kind of annoyed me. And then I know this is going to be a little strange, but it's poetic the way that they started it, in the way that they started it the same way as For All Mankind, where it's like no one knows and all of a sudden the Russians are landing on the moon.
Yeah, right.
I was hoping to have episode 1 be them launching the ship, getting that last minute prep, the oh my gosh, we're actually going to beat the Americans, and doing it.
Right.
So I was hoping to see that part. Maybe we'll see that in a flashback. I don't know. But that, for me, that was a little bit of a miss because that's part of the Soviet story that I wanted to see. What was that catalyst that got them to launch before Apollo? Because that's the fork in this timeline. What was that moment? And so
I was watching a recap video. Again, I'll give respect back to my partner, Ryan Airy, who was on with me a couple of weeks ago to talk about Spider Noir, is that it had to do with a certain, and I'm going to draw, was it Gagarin who passed? He passed away in 1966, or it was somebody who basically caused the Soviet science program to falter and let us pull ahead. So Ryan's research had covered that was the divergent point, but an exploration of that
makes sense. But it would have been nice to see it, like to have that just explicated. And so, like that's the other thing that kind of knocks it down is we didn't have that because we know that the point of separation is earlier than just landing on the moon. So it would be really neat to see that moment.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, we will. Maybe we will make an effort. I'll look at the schedule, figure out when it ends, and then we'll move some stuff around. It's just we're also in the middle of summer movies, so we've got talking about Spider-Man coming up. We've got talking about The Odyssey. We've got talking about Toy Story. We're talking about Supergirl. We've just got a lot of really big stuff coming up on this show. But God, thanks for tuning in. Please hit us up on our Secret Friends Unite socials. I'll give those in a minute. But Peter, if someone wants to talk For All Mankind and Star City with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, you can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas. I'm not super active, but if you poke at me and say, hey, I want to talk about Star City, I might say something. You can find me on our Discord for Secret Friends. You can also find me over on ELH's channel, Discord, and all of that, where we do role-playing games. And then you can find me behind the scenes on Starship Excelsior.
Excellent. And as I'd mentioned, you can find Secret Friends Unite proper at all of the socials with the exception of X and TikTok. We don't really mess around with those. You can find us at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Send us a note. Say, hey, I love the show. You guys are totally crazy, or I totally agree with you, and we'll feature your comments on one of our programs in the future. I think that'd be awesome. You can find me personally on again all of the aforementioned socials as at the C3 THECEETHREE. I am also finally getting back, if you check our YouTube channel and all of those socials, to doing my little 3-minute kitchen chats where I'm getting caught up on stuff that I am enjoying during the week. Eventually, I'll get Peter to do one as well. Yeah, you will. It's not hard. I've even learned how to use edits, which usually I shoot it on my phone and hit it to April and she'll edit it, but it's really super easy. But yeah, that's it for us. So friends, as always, thank you for tuning in. Loved having you on board. I'm going to tell you as always that sharing is caring and to keep on trucking.
Peace and long life.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.